on and it's my wife and we're doing it together. So that's, I don't know what's happening yet. So just getting geared up.
Great. Thank you, John. I'm going to move over to Pam White. I'm going to ask to unmute her. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
There we go. Start over.
I've been a CASA for 15 months. I've had one case for all of those 15 months. So learned a little bit in that time.
Great. Christine, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been a CASA.
Hi, my name's Christine. I have been a CASA almost 2 years. November it'll be 2 years. I've had one case that finished at the end of June, and I just started another one yesterday. Challenges, just learning everything and trying to get the families to trust you. And COVID was definitely a struggle we finished back to their family, and we did all of that through COVID, and the case was closed and they were returned to home. So kind of not getting much closure there to say goodbye, congratulations, and all that stuff. But other than that, great support through CASA and the upline, and it's going well.
Good. Chris, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. You're on mute, Chris.
Okay. Hi, I'm Chris Hansen. I can't get my picture up there, but I'm Senior Program Coordinator, and I've been with CASA for over 15 years, and I've had cases and support volunteers now, so it's my favorite job.
Thanks, Chris. Charlotte, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Charlotte, and I was sworn in last week as well. So my challenge is just with, like John said, just trying to figure out where to go from here.
Great, thank you. Lisa.
So I have been a CASA now. Are we at 3 months? Yeah, in the May swearing in. I do have my first case. What I find hard is I like where my kid is at, and to interview the other people and get their opinions, I'm like, ooh, I don't want to like something else better, which I know is the best for the kid, but that's hard, is spreading out from where he's at to checking with other family members and other situations to truly see where he needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Heather.
There we go. Got it unmuted. So I'm a newbie. I'm 4 days old. So I have received my first case. So I actually was going over that this morning, digging in, trying to follow all the instructions that you've given us, Becca. So lots of notes, lots of unknowns, and I meet with my the supervisor next week to go into detail and get things started. So, oh, you're right there. Hi. I didn't even. Woo. So I'm excited. I had 3 cases as potentials, and the part of me that wants to just jump in truly into the deep end, I picked what I thought was the hardest one. And so I know they're all going to be difficult, but I think a little grace was given to me, and I was assigned a different case, but still as difficult, I think. So I'm excited about getting started and just helping those kiddos.
Great. Thank you. Andrew.
I'm Andrew. I'm right along with Heather and Charlotte and John. I just picked a case. Unlike Heather, I think I tried to pick the easier one for the first go around. But I don't think any of them are really easy cases. They were all very interesting. So I have a meeting with Suhad on Friday to discuss more. So yeah.
Great. Well, now I'd like to introduce our panelists. I tried to pick a wide range of different takes, different experiences, people who have different roles in the CASA organization, and also can remember what it was like being brand new and those first few steps. So I'm going to start off with Judy. Judy, would you introduce yourself? Talk about how long you've been with CASA, your role, and where you're at.
I'm Judy Witt, and I've been a CASA for 9 months. I'm on my second case. My first case was assigned to me, and I'm kind of in a unique position because my SPC moved on to other pastures, a different chapter of his life, a week after he assigned me the case. So that was kind of interesting. But my first case was very easy, and I knew it was easy going in because there was a lot of family support. The case I'm on now is like night and day to that one. So.
Great. Felice, will you please introduce yourself, your role with CASA?
Sure. So I'm Felice Sanchez Garcia. I'm a senior program coordinator, and I think of everybody. I worked a little bit with Pam for a while, and then now I'm working with Heather. I'm actually on a case myself that's getting ready, hopefully, to close soon. It's been kind of a drawn out thing, but I've been on that case since last May. And so, and I've been with CASA since last February. So I still feel fairly new to a lot of things, but then, you know, sometimes I'm asked a question and I'm like, oh, I know this. And it feels pretty good to actually know something. So I'm right in the middle of, you know, being around for a while, but then still having that fresh perspective too. So.
Which is why I picked you. Rachel, I think next to Chris, Rachel's got most seniority on this call.
Thank you, Becca. I'm Rachel. I have been a CASA volunteer for 11 and a half years. I'm currently on my 13th case, and I do have currently 3 cases because I'm crazy. I wouldn't recommend that. But I'm also a peer coordinator, and what that is that once you guys have gotten seasoned for a year or so, then they'll assign us, the peer coordinators, to one of you. It's just a way to kind of spread the wealth, so to speak, so that the staff isn't too overwhelmed with things. So as peer coordinators, we're in court a lot of the time. Between our cases and our own cases, I currently have 7 of my own of people I'm supervising.
So technically you have more than 3 cases because you then have 7 more. You actually have 10 cases you're supervising.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So I'm going to ask Judy right now because she is, you know, relatively new on board and serving as a CASA, and the volunteers probably have a lot of questions that they don't know what to ask yet. So my question for you, Judy, is what were the biggest challenges coming on board? Obviously, it sounds like Garrett was your supervisor, right? And then and then there was probably this huge gap of what's going on, and then you landed with who's your supervisor now?
Well, with Karen Lee, but they just moved me to a peer coordinator.
Okay.
So I haven't talked to my peer coordinator yet, but I will. So.
Okay.
Carol Lee.
So Judy, when you first started as a CASA and you got your case, you did case opening, what were some of the biggest challenges that you were facing in those first few months?
The biggest challenge I had really was, where do I fit in with the team? Because with the caseworker and the GAL, now Garrett had warned me that the caseworker was very nice, but not the best at communication. And that was true. He was very nice. And if I emailed him, I'd get back a 1-line answer. And the attorney, very, very nice. But they'd talk about the team, and I'd be like, well, am I actually part of this team? Or when they said we're doing a team visit with the child, I'm like, does that include me? And so I asked, can I come along and just learn? And it took me a while to realize, because I never took it personally, but I kind of felt like I was an afterthought then. And it took me a while to realize, Becca, what you told us during training was that, you know, the GAL and the caseworker have all these cases. We have one. So that one case was the most important thing going on in my life at the time, but it wasn't their most important thing because it was an easy case. There was a lot of family support. Mom was on task with everything, and you knew how it was going to end up. So that was my single most, my biggest challenge, I guess, is where do I fit in? And I just felt like I wasn't being communicated with very well with them. And before the last court date in May, I had emailed the caseworker and attorney because I knew they wanted to close the case. And I said, where do we stand? Do I have to do this court report? What? And they said, oh, we closed the case a week ago. Okay, thanks for letting me know. So, you know, but that was, again, I understand more now with the case I'm on now. And just kind of going a little further, Becca, if I may, for another minute, the caseworker and the GAL I have now are, oh my gosh, unbelievable. They copy me on every single thing, every single correspondence with the therapist, with mom, with stepdad, with foster mom, with the attorneys for mom. I mean, anything they do for this case, I get copied on that email. And if I'm not on it from the therapist, they send it to me. It's just, it's fantastic.
That's great. Good. Yay, right? That's ideal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Backing
Good.
up, I don't think you ever actually said, were you a part of the team?
Well, when I saw that they said we're doing a team visit, I did email them and I just said, can I go along with this visit? And they said, absolutely. Well, then the GAL didn't go, just me and the caseworker. I guess I was part of the team, but I never really felt that way. But again, hindsight tells me, because it was an easier case, I wasn't the person on their mind, you know, because they had all these other cases. So to answer your question, theoretically, I was part of the team, but I don't know that I really felt that way with my first case. If I had a choice to go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, I would have asked them early on, can you copy me on every correspondence or whatever? But you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And Becca, you taught us so much, but to your point, you know, it's a little tiny thing. You can't do it all.
Right. Right. And you don't know what questions to ask until you get in there, right?
Right.
Good. Felice, same question. What were your biggest challenges when you took a case? I mean, you definitely had a dual role, right? You came on staff, so you're supervising a case as you're kind of learning it as you go, right? So let's talk about your biggest challenges and maybe how you overcame those or resources that you tapped into.
So I think, so for my case, I was still fairly new and we were following cases that maybe a judge had referred to us. And that was one of the case that I ended up choosing. And it was because mom was getting a little wild in court. And so I was like, oh, I want to find out more about what happens here.
Sign up for this.
Yeah. So I had that advantage of seeing it, seeing a few court dates before I actually, you know, said, hey, I want to take on a case. But the case had been going for, I want to say, at least 6 to 8 months by that point. And so it was kind of the same thing, like Judy said, just kind of jumping in. And even though I was seeing a lot of the professionals in court, because that was when we were stationed in the courthouse, so I would be in the courtroom all the time. And, you know, I knew who the GAL was, but it was kind of just that thing of overcoming that feeling of being intimidated and just jumping in and being like, hey, can you guys just send me information, please? And, you know, and just asking for what I needed, which I guess for me, it's more of a personal thing, I think, but it felt like I didn't want to be a burden by doing that, but that was the way to best kind of understand what was going on. And I got very lucky. I have a great GAL and a great caseworker. And so they were great about doing that. They actually sat in the courtroom one day with me when I was like, I think I'm going to take this case. They sat there and talked to me about it. But it was just that whole thing of being like, okay, I want to jump in, but because I think that a lot of times the professionals on the case they appreciate that we're there, but they expect us to just kind of jump in and just go with it and know what we're doing. And we don't always know how to do that, right? Every case is different. Every situation is different. And every person that you interact with is a little bit different. So just taking that time, if you're not getting what you need, for me, it was like, hey, I need to know what's going on. Can someone clear this up for me or tell me what has happened to this point. It was really important, and just like I said, overcoming that hurdle of feeling like I was going to be a burden by doing that, because they, for the most part, are very thankful to have our help, and they're glad to help us get to the point where we can all be productive together.
Yeah, was it you, Felice, that said if the metaphor was you're jumping into a moving car? Somebody had mentioned that you're, you know, like the car is moving and you're having to get on board very quickly, and they're already headed in a direction. You just got to figure it out. I don't know. I thought you said that, but somebody
and
said
it's
that.
it's like you're trying to figure out how to stop the car, but you don't know what's going on with it. So you have to kind of do a quick assessment of everything that you can and to figure out how to get it stopped so you don't, you know, run into a tree.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Thank you. Rachel, what were your biggest challenges? I know it probably seems like forever ago, but coming on as a new CASA, what were your biggest challenges that you faced, and maybe resources that you tapped into to help you overcome them?
I tapped into a lot of the staff, especially not knowing what I was doing. And my very first case was a really, really super tough one. I would come home crying every night because I just didn't know if I could handle and help this child and the family. And so the staff was really good about talking me through it and saying it's okay, everything's going to be all right. I have to echo what Judy and Felice said, though, about the team part, about the guardian ad litem and the caseworker and therapists and stuff like that. And what I did to, what's the word I want to, what I did is I would always send a letter of introduction, an email saying, hi, my name is, this is what I'm doing. And if they didn't know, because back in my day, a lot of the caseworkers, a lot of the guardian ad litems really still didn't know what CASAs did. And so we had some pushback on that. So that was some of my biggest challenges, is having those pushbacks from the caseworkers and the guardian ad litems. So I would send them a letter saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, I would like to meet with you. Can I get some information from the family, about the family, what's going on? And they really, a lot of them really responded well to that. I also send them a weekly update whenever I see my kids. I like to see my kids once a week if I can. I know that's not possible for everybody, but I always send them an update on how the kids are. Even if it was just playing board games, it's just like, hey, we did this today and the kid was in a great mood, or well, maybe not so good. So I send them updates, and so that helps them to understand who I am as well. As you know, they get to know what my ethics are, my work ethics are. And so I think that seems to help a lot of times to break that ice.
Good. Did you find that the more frequent visits were helpful?
Yes, I did, because I got to know the family better. I got to know the kids better. And one thing that a lot of people find, that, you know, you're going to have some of the families are going to be pushing back against you. You're just another part of the system. You're just another one of those people. What I tell them, and this seems to really help, the first thing I say is I explain who I am. I hand them the sheet about what a CASA is. And then I explain to them, I'm a volunteer. I do not get paid for this job. And that really seems to break the ice with the families. And I work predominantly with teenagers, so that really helps with the teens too, because then, oh, you're not part of the system. We are, but in their eyes, because we're not being paid to do this, we're not in the same boat as the guardian ad litem, the caseworker, the therapist, because we're there because we want to be there. So that really helps a lot too.
Good, great.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, sure, of course.
So my question is, like, you did the frequent visits. Was that before you could, like, pre-COVID, or was that post-COVID?
Yes. So I was doing once a week visits pre-COVID. Then during COVID, I would do a phone call or a Zoom video once a week with the kids. And then now that we've been released, I still try to do once a week.
That's great. So that's a great segue. My next question was going to be to Pam, Christine, Judy, Rachel, Felice. How has your experience in your CASA role changed in the time of COVID? And if you have a pretty good answer, just put your hand up and go ahead, Judy.
Okay, I have 3 kiddos right now, and I was assigned this case, maybe a week or 2 before we could go visit. But I wanted to, the second we could, I went to meet them in person because they're younger. And I just take like a blanket. We just go outside to a median area with a lot of grass, and their ages 10, 8, and 4. So I take snacks. Snacks are important. I take balls to play with. I've taken like Lincoln Logs and cardboard to build up things on. I've tried to explain to them, because they right now don't trust people because of what's gone on. And I explained to them that I fight for them, that, I don't get paid, and I am here to fight for you to make sure, you end in a safe place and it's what you want. But I do a Zoom call with the team, like with them and the foster mom, every other week, and then the kiddos get on. But they're about to be in 3 different homes in 3 different towns. So that's going to be, yeah. And when I came on, you talk about, police talked about a moving car. Another CASA had this case and it was not a good fit. So when I came on a couple months later, I'm running behind already, and I had to get up to speed really, really fast. So I do try and see the kiddos at least every other week. And so now I'll be visiting them in different places. But I think it's just, as long as it's nice weather outside, we find shade, we play games, we have snack, and then I kind of ask them questions, and they're opening up to me more and more. You just have to get them to trust you.
Christine.
So my kids were just returned to the home, and it was supposed to start out with a supervised slow visitation. Well, the entire family got COVID. So not only did the mom and the 2 kids, which were only 8 and 4, 9 and 5, they were turning, but so they were all quarantined, lots of stuff going on. So they're just getting returned to their home, and we're all doing our virtual visits. So it was interesting. And my family, generationally, my family was when I would show up for my kids 2 years ago, it was, hi, I don't have anything to say. Everything's all right. So you can go now. So I never actually asked many questions. Other than to just ask them, well, I'm not actually here to ask questions. I just want to hang out with you. And I think what Judy said was perfect is I go with my CASA bag. It's got the food, because I'd meet them after school, and inevitably they were hungry, and it was Nutri-Grains, so it wasn't, but hungry kids don't care. I had age appropriate games, because having 2 kids with 2 different processes, the way it impacted them is to try and get them apart, so that one wasn't talking for the other. I had to engage them. When we went to virtual visits, it's hard because mom's right here, and she's the one you're trying to get information about, is how are you in the home? And it would be like, good. What have you been doing there? Nothing. So asking mom, can you leave the room, and knowing the layout of the place and knowing she didn't leave the room. And, you just let the kids talk. And it's funny, my kids like to immediately wrap their mom out on pretty much everything. So it was almost like, oh, can I tell her what happened yesterday? Not always good. The other thing is with the Zoom, the split screen stuff, I could actually play some games, which the kids thought that was cool. So for them, getting a computer in their home, getting internet, which that was actually a big challenge at the beginning, but now with the new what's going on in society. So mine was always trying to draw them out, and what Judy said, and taking some of what the social worker had watching them and what they taught is draw me a picture of your house and who's in your house and who you feel safe being with. We almost started every meeting with that. Oh, do I get to draw my picture of my house? It's like, sure, I'd love to see your house. And you came to know what the people were. They didn't always have to tell me they're like, you know who this is, right? Because they didn't want to tell. So building that rapport, and I always just told the kids is, I'm here for you. I'm here so that I can tell the judge whatever you want me to tell them. And, but they do ask, you have to give them the full disclosure. Are you going to tell grandma? Are you going to tell mom? It's like, yes, nothing's a secret per se, but it's all in your best interest. So it always took a long time to get them to open up. Even if I only had an hour, sometimes it took 45 minutes, and then they were holding my hand and hugging me goodbye. But I agree with Rachel, is for me, I felt those kids needed weekly visits, which that's not easy. My kids had the counseling, they had activities, they had therapists, they each had their own GAL. There were a lot of people in and out of their lives. So, but I will say my aha moment didn't come with the mom until she was quarantined with the kids. And her comment when I saw the kid, well, how come you're not on your computer doing your homework? Well, mom took it away. Well, your first thing, not to judge. I think one of the judges had a really good virtual class with us where they said, when you knew Casas, when you go into these homes, this is not how you're probably raising your children. This is not how you see the family dynamic. So the first thing you have to do is leave your judgment at the door and not try and parent them the way you would parent yours, and not try and tell the adults in the situation how they should parent. You will immediately be the bad guy and you'll never recover from that. So listening to them, and that's hard because everything you hear, oh, well, he only smokes on these days, or he only smokes upstairs, the pot. And then when they see it in the court report, they're like, well, why did you tell? And it's like, I have to. So then getting them to continue to open up after they know that nothing is sacred, but you're not there to hear their secrets, you're here to help them. So making sure you don't cross that line of, I'm not your buddy, I'm not your pal, I'm not your confidant, I'm your resource, for the adults mostly. But the aha moment with the mom was thinking, oh, well, she took her computer away. Why did she do that? And then when mom finally had a breakdown, because I don't discipline them, they're great kids, kids will be kids. And finally she had that moment that we've all had where it was like, they don't listen, they broke this, I had to pay for it. And I was like, get the girls back. Why'd you do that? What? Mom, she should give you a consequence. And they're like, what? Take the toy away, take this away. And then mom did it. And then I called back the next day and the girls were like, do you want to see how clean our room is? And mom was like, thank you. I'm like, you're parenting. So when she understood that she could discipline her children in an age appropriate way, or have a consequence, or love them with consequence, we had a breakthrough. So trying to figure out what their fear is of why we're there, and assuring them that we are all on the same team, because Adams County is huge on wanting reunification. I don't think I've heard of a case in just the ones I've gone to court and watched that it's let's get these kids out of here for good. It's mostly all been reunification. So I think that's the key, is like Rachel said, is introducing yourself and, staying on top of it. And you've got to be in their face. If they don't see you, they don't know you. Because my kids were young. The new kids I have are 8 and 2. How am I going to help him other than just to observe? But the 8-year-old's got a lot of issues going in, and the parents are cooperative right now, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Wow. Pam.
Well, I couldn't agree more with what everyone has said. It's tough in the beginning to establish that team. I think the letter of introduction is key. Letting everybody know that you're just there to help. You're not there to try to do the caseworker's job or the guardian ad litem's job. You're just there for the kids. The kids know that. My kids were 5 and 2 when we started the case. They're 6 and 3 now. It's been a long case, very difficult. The COVID made it doubly hard for me. My kiddos, I have a 50-minute drive to see my kiddos. They're way out in the country. And you've talked about being able to walk down the street or bring a board game. The house that they're in, while it's safe and loving, there's no place to set up a board game and have any kind of individual time with the kids or time with the kids together. And there's no place to walk outside and put a blanket down on the ground. It's a very, very rural setting. So again, you're not walking into a home that's like yours. It's totally different. I love the foster parents. They're great. They've been very open with me and communicate with me, and that feels great. It was a little harder to get on the team with the guardian ad litem and the caseworker, but I think they've come around. It took a little while for them, I think, to trust me that I wasn't going to get in their business. And now they send me almost everything that they get about the parents, which is really nice. COVID has made it difficult with my kiddos because they're so young. The older one, the 6-year-old, will talk on Zoom. It's sometimes easier to just do the phone, although a couple days ago I was on the phone with the younger one, and that child thought we were on video. So he was taking me in his room and showing me his room, and and I just went along with it. I said, "Oh, it really is clean." And
This is what your room sounds like.
so he doesn't really get the whole video chat, phone chat, but it's still good. I have been playing a little. Well, I'm not very good at it. The older child is into Minecraft. So again, the split screen and doing some Minecraft things has been good. That child, I think, is getting tired of the whole video scene with the therapists, and they're back seeing their parents in person now at a park, but I think they're really tired of the video thing. So that's getting old. And I'm in a position where I have elderly parents. So I'm a little bit nervous about getting back into personal contact, probably more than some of you would be, just because I sure don't want to pass that on to my mom and dad. So I guess that's my piece. Becca.
Rachel or Judy or Felice, is there anything you'd like to add? Pre-COVID times, post-COVID times, anything that new volunteers might be helpful for them to know? Rachel.
One of the things that I've noticed is one of my kids is autistic, and he does not do well with online classes, any videos. So when you're thinking about the video visits, sometimes the kids are going to get really antsy and they just want to stop. And we have to be respectful of that, because sometimes these kids just get so overwhelmed that they can't. And he's having that issue with his school right now. So we just need to be real cognizant of what our kids' mental states are, what they're, I can't sit still, so I got to go now. He's even worse with telephone calls. My other kiddos, they're fine with that. And a lot of the kids are now online schools, so going online for more visits and stuff is going to be very hard for them. At least that's what I've noticed with my 4 kiddos. So
when our team, the caseworker, the GAL, myself, when we do visits with, updates with foster mom and then visits with the kiddos, this is when they all 3 live together. One just moved. One's in Lakewood, one will be in Brighton, and one will be in Henderson. I live in Westminster. So I'm going to put a lot of mileage on my car.
Put that mileage in Optima, Judy.
Really. So but when we were doing the every other week visit, because then I'd see them in person every other week, and then the Zoom visits. After we got an update from foster mom, we'd try to talk to all three, and yeah, that was never a good idea. So last time we did it, we said, okay, we're going to bring them in one at a time and talk to them. And that was so much better because they were more focused. They weren't messing around with each other and swirling around. They'd sit there and actually interact with us some. And I've done observations a couple of times with mom visits with the kids on Zoom, and I just keep my camera blacked out and my mic off because I just want to see the interaction. And after the second time I did that, mom later emailed the GAL and caseworker, and they passed on to me. She said, I gotta maybe do the kids separately, because she was getting very frustrated too. And so if you all have multiple kiddos, trying to do a Zoom visit if they're young, it's almost impossible. And to Rachel had an excellent point. They already are getting tired of computers, and now doing remote learning and then trying to do Zoom visits, that's putting a lot on the kiddos. So excellent point. So.
Good. So now I'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions. I would really like especially the newbies, now that you have an idea of what it's all going to look like, to ask the seasoned group. We have a wide range. We have like 50 years of experience if I add up Chris and Rachel and Felice. I mean, we've got a lot of experience on this call right now. If you have specific questions for them, there are no dumb questions. You guys, a lot of it, you don't know what you don't know yet. But it might be a good way to kind of address some of those challenges or maybe some hesitations you might have, especially since some of you haven't met with your kids yet, right? Lisa.
So I adore where my kid is. I love it. He's with his grandparents. I just adore them. But what I struggle with isn't so much the minimum acceptable care, but
the minimum sufficient level of care. Nobody likes
that's
that.
it.
Yes,
Right. Something like that. But what I feel is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I show up in my, newer car, and I have my expensive purse and my overly priced flip-flops. That's where I struggle. Like, they have so little and ask for so little. And here I am like, wow, I just lead a whole different lifestyle. And sometimes I struggle because I feel, like I said, ridiculous. Like, I have got some grant money to spend on clothes, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to hit the Oshkosh outlet. And I'm like, it's probably not where they shop. So that's where I'm struggling is I don't have that connection, I don't think. And that's hard for me, feeling like I just have so much compared to what they have.
Lisa, can I just speak to that real quick? With my first case, oh my gosh, I felt the same way. I mean, there were times that I think I was crying on the way home, and they were down in Aurora, because I thought, I have so much, and I get that. I totally felt the same way on my first case. On this case, I still feel that way, but I think over time, it does make you appreciate more of what you have, and you will always feel that way. But I think as you get into it more, I think you're less focused on that maybe, and thinking more, what can I do to help them or whatever? Because I might still think that, and my heart just goes out to these kiddos, and there's times that, I just cry because of it's just so sad what's going on. But I'm not thinking so much of like I did so much with the first case. I don't know if I'm getting hardened, but I still appreciate everything. It's not as much of a burden. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, like, we're going to get him bedding. He got a new bed. So I'm like, oh, I just think like the matching sheets and the comforter. And she's like, we have sheets. I'm like, oh. Like, she doesn't ask for a thing extra where I want to do like, go crazy. So it's just, I think it says more about me right now. And that's what I'm focused on, is trying to like not put that on them so much.
No, that's a really good point, being self-aware, right? I was in a training, this was a few years ago, and we did bring that up, just kind of that, the privilege of being able to volunteer, just the fact that you're there, you have extra time, you have a job that allows you to pay your bills, and you have time to give. That in itself is kind of a big deal. But we talked a lot in that training about how, you know, we might not wear our family diamond on that visit, right? Or talk about our trip to Maui, or you know, some of these other things that you think, I feel so self-conscious about it, right? So that is a really good point. Yes, Felice.
I just wanted to kind of add a different perspective in that sometimes, you know, when we kind of get out of our own head about it, it's the exposure to new things for these families that maybe, just like us, they don't know what they don't know. And so, you know, I know that I've had volunteers who have gone on vacations that maybe, you know, a lot of these kids may not ever get to go to these places, but they're showing them, like, look at these pictures of this place I got to go. And so it's not done in a way to make them feel bad that they, and I think that that's kind of on us, that we have to kind of own that feeling of, oh, you know, I'm very, it's that balance of, I'm very lucky and thankful to have what I have. And also it's okay to expose these kids to these new things, because sometimes, you know, we live, especially when we're young, we live in this small little bubble of only knowing what we know. And so some of us, all it took was somebody saying, oh yeah, I went to college. And like, what does that mean? You know, and so that just opened this whole new world for you as a kid. And it kind of allows them to, you know, dream big and think of things. I mean, obviously we're not putting it, you know, in their face like, oh, hey, like, why don't you have these brand new sheets or whatever? But, you know, sometimes it's nice to treat yourself with these things, and it's okay if you don't. And, you know, just letting them know those kind of things too, you know, so just giving them that perspective of, yes, it's fine that you are living and doing, and you're being taken care of, and you're very happy right now. And maybe someday you can add these things to it as well. You know what I mean?
Great perspective, Felice. Thank you. Rachel, you want to add to that?
Yes, I do. So I'm going to go build on a little bit what Judy said. You do find, as you go through and get more cases, that you do concentrate more on what those kiddos need. Not, you know, it doesn't become more about, you know, your feelings, Lisa, right now are very valid. You're very new. It happens. But one of the things I also find helps with the kids is, because I'm going to take vacations, I'm going to go do stuff, and I'm going to let the kids know that I'm not going to be able to visit them. But what I found I do, I buy them little trinkets. It doesn't have to be anything big. Or one time I just brought them seashells from the ocean, and that made their day. It's like, you thought of me while you were gone. And so it becomes more about, you're thinking about me even when you're not here. It doesn't become about, oh, well, you got to go on vacation and I get to sit here. It becomes more about, you know, you're thinking about me. You didn't have to bring me something back, but you did. So those are normal feelings when you drive up in your nice new car, or your, you know, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay. And what I do with, like you mentioned, the purse, Lisa, I don't carry a purse with me. I learned that early on. I don't want to take a purse to a visit. I just have like a little pocket wallet, and I stick it in the back of my pocket. I show up in jeans and sweatshirts or whatever. Not that I'm dressing down, but I want to dress more normal. Like if I go to a business meeting, I'm going to dress appropriately, right? If I'm going to a kiddo visit and I'm going to be sitting on the floor, I'm not going to wear a skirt or something like that. So, you know, just with those kids, you with any kid, even my own kids, I would dress, you know, however I wanted to dress. But for visits, I find casual works really, really well, because then the kids don't feel bad.
Yep, that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Great question. Go ahead, Pam.
similar experience. I did go to Maui in February, right before COVID struck. And I did send them both postcards. I picked ones that I thought each child would really like, which they did. They thought they were fabulous. And when I got home, they got them out. They showed them to me. We talked about the dolphin on the one and the shark on the other. And they asked questions about what I had seen. And it was a bonding moment and a teaching moment. They learned about Hawaii, and I brought them little, I don't know, white, they were like $1 a piece, those
Puka shells.
Puka shell necklaces. Yeah. And, again, it's just the fact that I remembered them when I was gone that was important. And I don't think they ever felt that it was weird that I was going on vacation or anything. They just appreciated being thought of and remembered. So.
And Pam, you are exactly who I was thinking about, actually.
What did you say?
I said you were the person who I was thinking about when I said that, I've had people who have gone on vacations, and the kids are so excited to have that. And I think that a lot of times these kids, because of everything that's going on in their lives, to know that this one person who just comes and visits them, like you said, thinks about them when you're not with them, enough to send them a card or to show them your pictures. It means a lot to them. And I think sometimes we kind of maybe, I don't know, get in our own heads about it a little more than they do. They're just like, hey, that's awesome. Like, show me more.
They were. And it was something different to talk about. You do get into it after 15 months, you get into a rut saying, how are things going? Are you feeling safe at home? It's nice to have some other topics to talk about and other things to think about with them.
Good. Great. That was, terrific. Other questions for our more seasoned CASAs?
So I have actually 2 questions.
Okay.
My first question is, you've all kind of talked about the team and building the trust with the caseworker and the GALs and all that. I guess, and maybe Becca, this is a question for you. Like, are CASAs still that unfamiliar to the team that we have to go through some of those, like what we do with them?
I'm going to turn this over to Felice and Rachel, just because they work directly with the GALs and they're more enmeshed on that piece of it. So I'll let the 2 of you address that.
So I would say that they're not unfamiliar with us. I think occasionally, like, I think we have a couple newer GALs now that I've seen, like, in the rotation, and they know what we do. I think that sometimes what it is that there may have been sometimes in the past where volunteers have come in kind of gung-ho, and then they kind of tapered off. And so regardless of whether we're here or not, they have to continue doing what they're doing. So it's not like you're building the trust, but it's kind of just same thing like we say with the kids, showing that consistency, that you're going to, come in with the same energy that, and you're going to, you can consistently keep that throughout the case. And that's just what they're looking for. If they see you come in and you're really gung-ho, and then, 2 months down the road, they're sending you stuff because they've kind of built that with you and you're not responding, you're not visiting kids. That's when they're like, well, that was I don't want to say a waste of time, but, they feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to continue doing this if they're not. So, and again, they're aware that you're all volunteers as well. And so it's almost like, some of them, I think that there are definitely a few GALs who kind of feel like, okay, well, show me you're in this and I'll bring you right in. And, some are a little easier to work with than that, but it's just showing that consistency for them that, you are going to be here. And even if it's not an every week visit kind of situation, you have a plan outlined for how you're going to handle this. And this is what your dedication to this is. And you're going to keep that throughout the case.
And John, I'll build on what Felice said. That's very true, that there are some guardian ad litems and some caseworkers out there. They all know what we do, but some of them just are a little harder to get to know. But once you get to know them, then you're there. And one of my jobs as a peer coordinator is to sometimes step in if the CASA is not being able to connect with the guardian ad litem or caseworker. And I did have to do a professional meeting with one of my CASAs, just because he would be sending emails and getting no responses. And it wasn't until after we did that professional meeting that they, oh, okay, I guess he is part of this team, so I guess we better do this. So, but it took a professional meeting to get them on board with that. So there are some still that are, they're not fighting it, they just don't, you know, like we've said before, they have so many different cases, and to be fair, maybe they thought that they communicated, or maybe they didn't. You know, it's hard to say where their minds are, but I think they all have good intentions, and we just need to be kind of like the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. That's what we have to do, and that's what I tell the CASAs that I get, is just keep sending those emails. Even if you don't get any replies, just keep sending them, because sometimes we're the only ones that feel, a lot of times, let me put it for me, a lot of times I have felt that I'm the only one pushing for something. And I did have a caseworker one time. It didn't matter how many questions I asked her. I could ask her the same question 10 times in a row and I never get an answer. So what I did is I started putting those in my court reports, that I asked this question, but I never got an answer. I didn't point the finger because I didn't have to. The judge knew where that information was supposed to come from. But, you know, that's what I did is, you know, if I couldn't get a response and my peer coordinator, it wasn't peer coordinator then, but my coordinator couldn't get an answer either, then I'd resort to putting it in the court report. But not pointing fingers, just saying general, I've been having a hard time getting this question answered.
And I would just add to that, that's part of our job as peer coordinators and senior program coordinators. If you're ever running into issues with communication or anything that you feel like you're not getting answers, let us know, because sometimes we will be able to get the answer a little easier than you will. Sometimes we won't. I have a case with a volunteer. He has had just a really hard time with the foster family, letting him do visits, and the guardian ad litem has spoken with them, the caseworker spoken with the foster family, and he's just not really getting anywhere. So, you know, we're here to help escalate it when need be. So even if that goes all the way up to letting the judge know, like, hey, we're having a hard time getting anywhere with this. I think that the really good thing about where we are is that the judges really value having us on the cases. And so I've seen judges say, you know, if you're not going to cooperate, tell parents, if you're not going to cooperate with the CASA, we can, you know, hold you in contempt of court, because you're that important to have on the case. So I always let people know, don't feel like you're not important to get that information, and if you're not getting it and you've tried everything that you can, loop us in and we will definitely try and get that for you.
Because we want you to succeed as well, and we want your kiddos to succeed. And if you feel like you're being blocked, then you're not going to succeed. So let the staff know. The staff is great, but we've got a lot of good peer coordinators. They're really good. I'm not talking for myself. I'm talking about the other ones too. So, but.
Good questions though. We do have time for one or two more questions for the panel. Is anything else on your mind?
So during the case opening meeting, I actually have one Friday with Suhad. Is that when I'll be introduced to the GAL and the caseworker?
So I think we all do our case openings slightly differently. We all have our own little style on it, but for the most part, we go through, because you've had your petition, so we take that time to answer any questions that you have about the petition, kind of get you set up with questions that you're going to want to ask, and then I'm pretty sure all of us will do an email at the end of it and just kind of introduce you to the caseworker, the guardian ad litem, and then loop you in on the email and just say, hey, Andrew has been appointed to this case. We're wanting to know if you have any visits coming up or any, you know, family team meetings, anything that's coming up that he can join you on. And then I always ask my volunteers to just respond to that as well, and maybe, you know, give a few dates that might, you know, work for you, or what your schedule looks like, so they have something to respond to. I know we've said it a million times today, but sometimes they are pretty busy and they can read an email and mentally, we all have done it where you're like, oh yeah, I got that, but then you don't respond. So if you're giving an ask of them, like saying, hey, when's your next visit? Or, what school are the kids at? How has school started? We're right in that time where you can ask some kind of question where they can respond to you. That kind of gets the conversation going as well. But so your case opening will include that. They're not going to be on the meeting with you, but we typically send an email to kind of do a warm transfer, so to speak. And then we always follow up with you within a week or two, just to make sure that you've gotten contact, hopefully have even scheduled a visit by that point. And then if not, what we can do to help you from there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We have time for one last question. What's on your mind?
Well, if no one else has one, I have one more.
Okay.
So I've heard a number of you guys say how your kids are split up, and because it's my wife and I that are going to be doing it, we know we're going to have multiple kids. How common is that kids are actually separated? Does that happen frequently, or is that the not normal, abnormal?
So I think that really just depends on what's going on with your case. If there's some issues between siblings, or maybe there's extra parents, like, two moms, two dads, that kind of stuff, mom, stepdad, all of that, it's going to depend on the situation with your case. For the most part, if they try and keep siblings together as much as they can. I actually have a volunteer they're volunteering as a couple, and they have 6 kids on their case. And the only way that they could keep all those kids together was to move them to Colorado Springs. And because that was more important than keeping them close here to town, they moved all 6 kids so they could all be together and, stay together in one home. But then I also have a couple who's volunteering. They have 4 kids, and all 4 kids are in different homes. So it's really going to depend on the case. If that's something that you feel like would be a barrier or would be hard for you to work around, let your senior program coordinator know. I mean, we can never predict if that's going to happen down the road, but we can always find out now, like, is this pretty stable? Does it seem like they're going to be staying here for a while or returning home, whatever the case may be, and how far they are. But yeah, we can never predict it, but we can see in the beginning where they are. Sometimes, they just for, logistical reasons, they have to be split up between 2 homes or whatever, but they try not to as much as they can to keep, kids together. So.
Good. Well, I do want to respect all y'all's time. It is 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, panelists. This was really good. This was better than expected. I kept it pretty loose and it worked out pretty well. You will be included on future trainings. So everybody, thank you. If you have any additional questions, concerns, please reach out to your SPC or any staff member and we'll point you in the right direction. But yeah, for those of you who are brand new, welcome aboard. For those of you who are more seasoned, thank you so much for your input. Have a good day, everybody.
Welcome, you too, Becca. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Becca.